Part 87. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 866. So, this girl is Cinderella. Commonly known as Cinderella. Tao Ran couldn't walk anymore. The day I came to the 16th floor, I knew that the plot of the series should be a fairy tale. But she didn't even think much about ready-made fairy tales. Now it seems that this plot, isn't it just Cinderella? Go, do me a favor and ask about that girl. She motioned to her friends. In fact, she didn't need to say anything, the yellow-haired eagle and the others had already gone. A minute later, several people came back. It has been spread. Everyone is asking who the girl is, so it's easy to find out, Zhou Chang said. Tao Ran confirmed his suspicion when he saw Huang Mao couldn't hold back his laughter. Her name is Cinderella, right? Zhou Chang, the princess is wise. Ma Xiaoyuan, Cinderella will live a happy life with the prince. You have no chance. Eagle, we sincerely invite Princess Ran Ran to return to the player team. George, no wonder I have to kneel down and apologize to you. Tiger, are you going to fight? Huang Mao, shall I accompany you to watch the dance? Or you can choose among the 5 of us. Xiaoan, men are not good. Instead of dancing, it is better to drink. Men, we can also drink with you. Looking at the male and female protagonist in the center of the dance floor, with a faint light above their heads, Tao Ran felt unhappy. But what she was unhappy with was not the prince, but the system. Sure enough, I am playing with her. In the Cinderella story, the male and female protagonists are destined and true love. The prince searched all over the country for the girl he met once, how sincere he was. This also explains why the prince, who has always been sober-minded, became fascinated when he saw Cinderella. She is an official match. Set it up. What are you fighting for? Can you fight for it yourself? The system goes too far. The prince's true love appeared, how could she win the prince's favor? If the prince is full of favor, will he still want Cinderella? Didn't the fairy tale collapse? So if she had accepted the task immediately, she would have had an impossible script in her hand. It scares me just thinking about it. The only thing that makes Tao Ran happy now is that he doesn't make 3. But the suffering master who was involved. She could feel that all the guests present were stunned, feeling incredible and ridiculous. More and more attention was paid to the couple on the dance floor and Tao Ran. There are sighs, heartache, regrets, injustices, sighs, and of course there is also ridicule. Ouch. Teammates came forward one after another and asked if they wanted to do something. In this way, Eagle stepped forward. I think I'm pretty cool and handsome. Let's dance together and fly all over the place. First we steal everyone's attention. Then we do a close kill to make the prince angry and let him know that you are very popular. Then do something else. How about a little trick to make the prince and Sanner make a fool of themselves? Tell me, do you want the man to beat the dog and eat shit, or do you want the woman to beat the shit? Are you taking it out on me? Isn't it nice? Looking at me finding a new partner so quickly, wouldn't it mean that the male and female protagonists have no moral pressure at all? He can like the new and dislike the old, but I will only have him as my dance partner from the beginning to the end. Only in this way can I crush and sanction him morally. Okay, don't come up with bad ideas. Tao Ran brought another glass of wine. You, all stay away from me. Although she fell from being the absolute heroine to supporting actress tonight, it doesn't stop her from stealing the show, right? The happier the couple is, the more cruel she appears. As long as the audience is satisfied. She took a deep breath and sat there quietly. Slightly sad and lonely, the lonely beauty at this moment is completely different from the Fei Yang princess before. Most of the guests present could not help but look at her with more sympathy than the scumbag. The effect is also immediate. Many male guests couldn't stand it and came to try to heal the beauty's sorrow. Chaoran always smiled, shook his head, refused, and let his sadness flow into a river. The prince and the girl had danced 3 times in a row. The two became more and more affectionate, their eyes firmly glued together. Undoubtedly, the prince had completely forgotten his real dance partner. The prince's subordinates have stepped forward to remind him again. But the prince just said I know but never let go of Cinderella's hand. Another minute later, the prince was taken away. It was the queen's people who came to invite him away. The queen, who was handling affairs in another banquet hall, couldn't bear it after hearing the news. About 10 minutes later, the prince came back. He seemed to think of Chaoran just now. Looking at Chaoran, who was lonely in the corner, he didn't dare to look directly and lowered his head. His people returned to Cinderella again. He took Cinderella to the terrace, and the two talked for a long time. The prince came back and found Chaoran. The two entered a room, and then the prince began to apologize. Chaoran, so, am I still the most beautiful, the most sensible, the most considerate, the smartest, the strongest, the bravest, and the most perfect girl? Yes, absolutely. I don't know why. I know you are the best and most suitable, but I just can't help looking at her. She is not as beautiful as you, not as noble as you, not as smart as you, but she just feels so deeply attracts me. I think, maybe this is love? So sorry. I may have to let you and the Queen Mother down. My mother came to see me, and I thought about it deeply. But I can't control my feelings. I also talked to Cinderella and I wanted to marry her. So, sorry. The prince lowered his head with a look of frustration and pain. Naturally, his reason cannot defeat the plot. Chaoran knew he didn't mean it, but he still couldn't help scolding him. My dear prince, your vow only lasted for half a day, and you didn't say that you would always be good to me, take care of me, and make me happy? It's really more illusory than a dream. You can fall in love and break your promise, but you can't trample on my dignity. I feel now I'm like a fool being played by you. Chaoran had one purpose, to make him feel guilty, to make him sad, to make him feel sorry. Then, see if you can reap any benefits. Even if not, she can always get some points if she is so dedicated, right? When the prince looked over, he met Chaoran's tearful eyes, and he panicked for a moment. Are you sad? Chaoran took a deep breath and didn't answer. The prince became even more panicked. You are not in love with me, are you? The princess of the East is proud. In my case, love is restrained, buried in the heart, and proven by actions not words. You really fell in love with me. The prince grabbed his hair. It was obvious that he was sad and guilty. What can I do for you? Dear Ran, tell me, as long as I can do it, I will do my best. I'm willing to fulfill your wish. I'll go to the queen and tell her, Chaoran said grandly, turned around and left. Since Chaoran fell out of favor, her former love rivals would inevitably come to mock her, especially Princess Haha, who was watching the show and was blocking her way. Chaoran was not in a particularly good mood, and the other party's dry teasing made her feel very boring. So when the other party approached, she tilted her wine glass and spilled all the red wine. She just stained her skirt. If you keep talking nonsense to me, I'll tell you to throw wine at me. Either get lost, or be my punching bag. You'll become a joke tonight. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 867. Chaoran's skirt was dirty. She can just quit the ball, which will not affect the plot of the male and female protagonists, and she can become the poor supporting actress that everyone feels sorry for. Maybe she can continue to receive a big gift package like thousands of favors like yesterday. She also wanted to find the queen. Complaining and complaining, humming, the pomegranate country owes her something, she has to pay it back, right? Otherwise, where would she put the face of the country of China? The system is not kind, so the plot NPC has to compensate her, right? The bottom which can send her to the 10th floor. Since the wizards in this country can create illusions, their level should not be much different. Taoran doesn't have high demands, just send her to a few more floors. I was not happy at all, but I still dared to have someone come to my door. Isn't this asking for trouble? Her personality is noble and gentle, but that doesn't mean she can be bullied. So she just went along with the flow to maximize her profits. Oops, even the guests bullied her. She really couldn't stay in the pomegranate kingdom any longer. How dare you? What does the wine you brewed have to do with me? Princess Haha was stunned. She couldn't believe that this was something a princess of a country could do. Yeah, I did it, but I'm going to bite the bullet and say you did it. What do you think? Do you believe that I can still fall down now? That you pushed me? I can still cry for a second and say that you bullied me. Well, you ran. Vicious woman. Rampant. Vicious. Why are you so bad? Princess Haha pointed her fingers. I'm going to report to the king's uncle. I'm going to find my father. I want you to walk away without food. Taoran snorted. Don't believe in evil? I gave her a chance, but I didn't cherish it. Taoran could only vent his anger and continue to be selfish. So the next second, she followed Haha's finger and fell to the ground. Her hands were red, her clothes were even dirtier, the string on the feather fan was broken, and the feathers fell on the floor. She was in a miserable state, with red eyes, and was even more pitiful than the legendary little match girl. Princess Haha was so angry that she was shaking all over. She regretted it. But it's too late. She realized something was wrong. Because of Ran's fall, a large number of guests were attracted, and the prince also rushed out of the reception room. Everyone's eyes were on him, and everyone had already subjectively judged that they had done something to Ran. Of course, great tea. Look what I'm doing. It's not me, Haha said angrily. But when Taoran opened her mouth, she said, I'm sorry, it's my fault. It was completely opposite to Princess Haha. The superiority and inferiority have already been established. As a human being, it is instinct to tilt the balance of the heart towards the weak side, not to mention that 99% of the people present have a good impression and sympathy for Ran. Everyone has subconsciously felt that Ran is generous and seeking perfection, but he is also unruly and powerful. The prince and the guests quickly helped Taoran up. Taoran, I didn't expect Princess Haha to be outside the living room. I accidentally bumped into Princess Haha as soon as I came out. It was my fault and had nothing to do with the princess. With those light words, Taoran was completely overjoyed. The effect was that the guests started pointing at Princess Haha, and the prince's face turned dark. Haha, what is Princess doing outside his room? If he hadn't been sneaky, if he hadn't been close to the door, how could he have bumped into her? Is she eavesdropping? What is she going to do? However, wine was poured on her and she fell down. How could it be a simple collision? Some guests said that they saw Haha's finger and his face became angry. It was clear that Haha had moved his hand. Ran didn't want to make a big fuss, so he just stood up for the banquet to go smoothly. The prince's face became even more bitter. However, this was because he saw that he did not want to offend Haha country, so he was wronged. God, how could he bear to let down such a good girl? The same goes for the guests, everyone is supporting Ran. After all, everyone knows that Princess Haha loves the prince, and she definitely has the motive to bully Princess Ran. On the other hand, Princess Ran, what reason did she have to frame Princess Haha? In this way, Princess Haha almost collapsed and was taken away by the prince's order, disqualifying her from the dance. Taoran gently broke away from her hand that the prince was holding. Be careful. She saw Cinderella standing far away, and she couldn't let the plot go away. Misunderstandings or something are the most troublesome. Because of Taoran's words, the prince felt even more sorry for this lovely, decent, and kind-hearted girl. Then, Taoran heard the system sound again. Ding ding twice. The prince took Taoran to the queen's small living room. The queen was extremely apologetic, held Taoran in her arms, comforted her, and arranged for Taoran to change clothes, and then went to have a secret chat with the prince again. After changing clothes, Taoran turned on the screen. 2 system messages. The first one is another blinding system message: congratulations to player number 444 for gaining the favor of more than 1,000 people at the same time in one level and winning the title of Thousands of Admiration. Undoubtedly, it was the result of her shining on the dance floor at the beginning, then being still decent when she was green, and finally leaving the stage generously. As this thing flashed past, several messages popped up in the dialog box at the bottom of the screen. It was her teammates. Everyone was sore. Tiger, you are going to heaven. Huang Mao, I'm jealous. Zhou Chang, sister, do you want to teach acting? Xiaoan, is it too late for me to meet the prince now and learn how to dance ballroom? George, you are extremely rich. Why don't you pay back the water and medicine we owed before? Eagle, I think it works. If she doesn't comply, we will expose her character. Xiao Yuan, this is my last trumpet. I didn't want to speak at first, but I still want to express my envy of the captain and my support for the deadbeat. Taoran was too lazy to pay attention to them. She clicked on the treasure chest of rewards. 1 world loudspeaker, 10 ordinary loudspeakers, a lottery with 100% rewards, a call ticket and the player's attribute bonus. After taking a closer look, the call coupon shows that it can only be used after attacking the tower and clearing the level. As for the attributes, the favorability and luck attributes are still increased by 5%. As for the lottery, it must be displayed through the assistant. Now that she was not in the mood, she just ignored it. She immediately shut down the system without even reading the second message. Because the queen and the prince had a quarrel inside. When she released her mental energy and listened carefully, it was indeed something she had not expected. She heard the prince say, "Want to marry too?" What? Want to break the mold and marry 2 princesses? He said that he fell in love with Cinderella at first sight, and Karen loved him, but he really couldn't bear to hurt such a good girl. Scumbag. Dreaming. Taoran knocked on the door and bluntly stated that she would not accept it. I'm leaving. This place is not suitable for me. So your 2 highnesses don't have to worry anymore. Your Highness, Miss Cinderella is still waiting for you. Just when I was looking at the display, I accidentally scanned the time. I didn't feel it until I saw it, but I was shocked to see that it was already 11:30 p.m. Cinderella is leaving soon. The prince still has a plot, and this time the fairy tale cannot fall into her hands. So she couldn't help but urge. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 868. Taoran was scared. Although it was unintentional, the plot was dragged down because of her. The story of Cinderella has changed from a beautiful love story to a sadomasochistic love triangle. If it doesn't stop, it will go astray. She didn't dare. Lettuce killed the prince in anger that time because he knew he was not eliminated in that level, but this time, once the story collapses, will players like them still exist? She can't afford to gamble. Faced with her urging, the prince didn't know that his heroine had to leave before 12 o'clock, so he didn't take it to heart. My dear Ran Ran. He just felt that he had hurt Ran Ran's heart, but Ran Ran was still so generous, and he felt even more sorry. "How can I leave now? Tell me, how can I make it up to you? I can do anything for you." He was not in a hurry, but Taoran was. She didn't want to talk nonsense anymore, turned around and left. She went straight back to the dance. She found Cinderella at a glance. The girl was looking at everyone's condemning and contemptuous eyes, not knowing how to deal with herself. As for Taoran's 7 friends, they were 10 meters away from Cinderella. When I saw them, their eyes were sneaky, and I didn't know what they were thinking. Taoran squeezed them away, then went to relieve Cinderella, called the waiter to bring drinks and snacks, and took Cinderella's hand to sit aside. Taoran was generous and tried her best to express her kindness and concern. Soon, there was another ringing sound in her ears. As wise as she is. The male protagonist has a favorability bonus, how can the female protagonist not? The prince soon arrived. Taoran exited, leaving the opportunity for the protagonist to speak. The prince's troubled eyes showed a little more appreciation for her. She found a secluded place and turned on the system. Sure enough, she received a favor reward from the heroine. Since a new protagonist is unlocked, the luck value increases by another 3%. She also scanned the information that she hadn't read before. Oh, it was a friendly reminder that the prince's favorable impression of her has exceeded 70%. The friends are here. All of them had faces full of resentment. You are really good at it? You can even try to win favor with your love rival. You can go too. The mission hasn't been released for a long time, so why don't you stop eating and drinking all the time? Why don't you work hard to gain favor? You think we didn't work hard? Everyone sighed. Because of their insufficient status, they are completely inaccessible to kings, queens, and princes. They can't dance, they are average looking, and they don't stand out enough to attract attention. They want to learn from Taoran and create their own opportunities if they don't have any. But they lack acting skills and a screenwriter to write the plot. No, just before Taoran came, the 7 cobblers were still discussing how to let Huang Mao go and seduce Cinderella to dance first, and then Eagle would use his skills to make Cinderella make a fool of herself. Then Zhou Chang and Tiger stepped forward, Xiao Wen and Xiao Yuan came up in order to comfort him. Eagle went to inform the prince again, working together to brush up the favor. But just as the 7 of them were about to take action, no matter how angry they were, Taoran appeared. The plan of the 7 was over before it even started, and then everyone started to feel resentful. Now that the prince is here, they have no chance. Several people were crying, but now that Taoran had no shortage of points, she directly agreed that she would not have to pay back the water and medicines that these people owed her. The 8 people were confused, so, what exactly is the mission on this level? Over there, it's the same as in the plot. Cinderella and the prince finished their last dance, and seeing that it was almost 12 o'clock, they said goodbye in a hurry. The beauty suddenly ran away, and the confused prince did not catch up with her. He only picked up a glass slipper on the stairs. The prince began to look for Cinderella, only to find that the girl was not on the original guest list. The prince suddenly became lovesick, and he planned to go out to look for the person immediately. The king and queen were very angry at his behavior. The king felt that the girl was interested and it would be a good thing for her to disappear, so naturally he was not willing to lend his troops to find someone for the prince. If you want to find that girl, you have to find a way to go there yourself. In short, I won't give it to anyone here. The king was very determined. John, you are so ridiculous. We only met that girl once, and you are so willful. I will not support you. The queen was also determined. The prince can only find a way by himself. He mobilized his own escort team, but a mere 100 people were like looking for a needle in a haystack, which was obviously not enough. He returned to the banquet and asked the guests openly if anyone would be willing to help him. Most of the guests were afraid of offending the king and queen, So they left one after another, leaving only a few people. The prince nodded, and there were only a few dozen people. Including the servants of these people, the total he can use is only 200 to 300 people. It was at this moment that Taoran and the others heard the jingle at the same time and knew they were on a mission. The task is simple. Cinderella is missing and the prince wants to find her. The player's task is to find Cinderella before the prince and gain the prince's gratitude. That's it for the mission. Note, this mission can be done alone or in a team. Please choose, solo or team. After Taoran and the others looked at each other, they almost unanimously chose to form a team. Obviously, when it comes to finding people, the more people there are, the greater the advantage. Afterwards, all the number plates of existing players in this level are displayed on the screen for players to form their own teams. All 8 people made the same choice, select all. So, their team from yesterday was formed again. At this moment, the prince found the wizard and made a request. The wizard was unwilling to help him find someone, but only agreed to help him carve an identical glass slipper. Soon, everyone who nodded and was willing to find the girl had a pair of fake glass slippers. When the prince counted the number of people, he saw clearly. He stepped forward in shame, fearing that Ran would be sad. He explained that he was afraid that something would happen if Cinderella left suddenly, so he had to find someone, and asked Ran to go back and rest first. He would definitely give an explanation tomorrow. With that said, he transferred a few people to send Princess Ran back to her room. Zhou Chang and others suppressed laughter. Shooting a stone in the foot? There are too many scenes, so it's a waste, isn't it? They all thought that Ran would sneak out to join them later, but they didn't know that the actors were very professional and could act anytime and anywhere. She looked anxious. I'm not going back. I'll go with you to find Cinderella. How can this be done? How can I make you work so hard? My dear, be obedient. Prince, have you ever thought about why Cinderella ran away? Why? Everyone can see that Cinderella fell in love with you at first sight. But she suddenly disappeared. She must have been stimulated by something. If I guessed correctly, she must have heard about what happened between you and me and was heartbroken before voluntarily quitting and leaving. Taoran's acting skills have improved. She must be very sad right now, hiding somewhere alone and licking her wounds. I have to find her. I have to explain it to her myself. Otherwise, even if you find someone, Prince, she will not come back with you. I go. I'll explain. I have to tell her that I have nothing to do with the prince, there is no engagement, and I have never promised the prince anything. The prince opened his mouth, but no word came out. At this moment, he forgot about Cinderella and only remembered that he owed Ran more. Taoran had already picked up her skirt and got into the prince's carriage. What are you still waiting for? If your highness drags you on, you may miss Cinderella forever. The prince quickly got into the car. Zhou Chang and the others were left staring blankly. So what? The captain got on the prince's carriage. What about them? Walk. Horse riding? No. She's not with them. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 869. Taoran got on the prince's carriage, while the remaining 7 people were confused. Isn't it a team mission? What does it matter if the captain runs away alone? Where are they? Are they asking them to find Cinderella themselves? Zhou Chang opened the screen and asked directly. Captain, what do you mean? Why are you in a carriage? Do you want to act alone? What about us? We haven't discussed the details of the mission yet. Come down quickly. Let's discuss it first. Taoran replied quickly. Although the prince got on the carriage, he was busy sitting in front and studying the map of the capital with his subordinates to divide the search areas for his personal guards, so he did not look at Taoran at all. Leisurely Douran calmly turned on the monitor and started replying. And her first sentence made Zhou Chang and others choke. I kept dancing in high heels. My feet hurt and I was still tired. I didn't want to leave, so I took the carriage. Everyone was speechless. We are a team, and we should go in and out together. Of course, I can't act alone. So I'll do my best to keep up. The few people had no choice but to suffer and temporarily catch up with the convoy that had just set off in front. If you don't want to walk, apply for carriages and horses yourself. But I suggest you don't. George was stupid and asked why. Because you have been eating, drinking, and chatting all day long, accumulating fat and feeling lethargic. You just need some exercise to refresh yourself. Tiger couldn't hold it back and replied directly, thank you, whole family. Also, can you finish speaking in one breath and don't skip every sentence, as my brother's speakers will consume less money. Douran continued to be so angry that he would not pay for it with his life. Be considerate of me. I have too many speakers, which take up space. Use more. Actually, you can resist not replying to me. Tiger, you are just too hasty. However, you were right to thank me just now. You all have to thank me. Because of me, this task of yours will become extremely easy. Afterwards, Douran informed her of her plan. Ordinarily, this task is simple yet complex. The simple thing is that they generally know that Cinderella's family is well off, and her two sisters are also attending the banquet today. Just look at the roster for today's banquet, it's not a big problem. But it is not easy to do this. There were 1,000 or 2,000 guests at the banquet, and at least half of them came for the prince, so there were not many sisters accompanying each other. There are not hundreds, but also 70 or 80 pairs. It is not easy to check one by one. Secondly, who would easily give guests family information, address information, and demographic information to them? They can only figure it out on their own. Third, they were not familiar with the place and could not figure out the main roads in the capital. How much trouble would it be to find someone in the middle of the night? Douran's mind was spinning fast. The system just told them to find Cinderella before the prince. In other words, just one step faster will do. Just do it before the prince does. Then, Douran was opportunistic. She simply followed the prince. When the prince's people have found out everything, she and her people only need to be one step ahead of the prince to verify, put the glass slippers on Cinderella first, and confirm that she is Cinderella. After figuring it out, why would she bother? The manpower of the prince will not be used in vain. This was the reason why she shamelessly got into the prince's carriage. So everyone followed. Once someone comes to report that the prince may have discovered the girl, we have to be the first to go and verify it. And I will stay behind the carriage, and I can slow down the prince at the critical moment. Everyone performs their duties. Thank you for your hard work. Isn't it hard work? She got into the prince's carriage, which was quite easy. But the other 7 people had a hard time begging for 2 horses from the stable. 1 horse was given to Xiaoan and Xiaoyuan, and the remaining 5 people could only ride on 1 horse. The whole journey was very hard, with all kinds of chasing to verify. Just like in the fairy tale, the prince's people investigated each house and stayed awake all night. The prince was anxiously waiting for the news. The prince was so ashamed that he didn't dare to look at her at all. Douran was so happy that he simply closed his eyes and fell asleep. But several times, her mental power caught the prince peeking at her. She remembered the message sent by the system before, saying that the prince's affection for her had reached 70%, right? As she thought this, there was another ding. Douran opened his eyes suddenly, while the prince's eyes instantly closed. He not only looked outside the car, but also spoke to his men in a covered manner. Douran was a little empty, and the screen appeared. A message, the prince is increasingly attracted by the player's generous, selfless, and kind-hearted noble personality charm, and his favorability value for the player has risen to 80%. Already 80? This is rising too fast. But what about the noble in quotation marks? How could she still hear the sarcasm? Why? She glanced at the back of the prince's head. Now she does seem to be a bit of a liar, like Neptune, who is toying with an innocent boy. What the prince likes is just the character she created. Does she really seem to be such a scumbag? But she didn't mean it. A prompt appeared again in the system, suggesting that she start a hidden mission, the prince's heart. How many times has this happened? Why does the system keep reporting the prince's favorability data to her repeatedly? Why do you repeatedly give strategy suggestions? The more times it happened, the more she would inevitably feel like the system was trying to lure her into taking the bait. She replied directly below the message and asked, what will happen to the prince if the strategy is successful? Perhaps the system didn't expect her to ask the question suddenly, nor did it expect that she would be concerned about the prince's future, so she waited for a minute or two and didn't get a reply. When she fell asleep, she heard another noise. She received a reply, after the mission is successful, the player can choose to stay in this fairy tale forever and live a happy life with the prince. Players can also choose to take away a large amount of generous rewards and continue the mission. The prince will leave Cinderella after realizing his love for the player, and will always live in the process of waiting for the player to come back and missing the player. Taoran took a deep breath. A person like her who is sober, who cares about real life, and who has dreams and life values to realize, will definitely not stay in a fairy tale. So she must leave. But, then wouldn't this fairy tale really collapse? The prince became a wife-gathering stone for her? What did the innocent prince do wrong? She shook her head. She has always been upright and above board, and she doesn't want this feeling of guilt. Taoran once again chose to refuse to open it. The system once again popped up a line of prompts, this level is an advanced hidden plot. The rewards are particularly generous, which is enough for players to reap unimaginable benefits. Players are only one step away from success. It is strongly recommended that players choose carefully. Taoran has always been firm when it comes to the bottom line of right and wrong. She pressed OK without hesitation. The system finally quieted down. Taoran began to think deeply. Then she heard George cough. She quickly got out of the carriage. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 870. Although Taoran had been taking a nap, his mental energy had long been released. Where they are now is the most prosperous and high-end residential area for wealthy people in the capital. Everyone in the prince's guards felt that the luxuriously dressed Cinderella was either rich or noble and was definitely not in a civilian area. So the prince's personal guards focused on searching this area. Zhou Chang, who is the smartest, and Eagle, who is the most skilled, work harder. Zhou Chang relied on his communicative skills to get along with the prince's deputy captain, and obtained a list of guests living nearby for the banquet, and then led his teammates to start the screening. The Eagle is busy using his skills to conduct illegal investigations into suspected people's homes. The teammates were all very busy, going back and forth, trying to find out who was suspected of being Cinderella. No, George just came back. An old gentleman said that there was a declining count's family living by the lake in front. The family had 2 daughters. He also said that the count's current wife was married after the death of his original wife. It sounds familiar, it seems to be the same content as a fairy tale. George perked up. He hurried back and wanted the Eagle to explore first and make sure. But Eagle hasn't replied yet, so he notified Taoran. Taoran originally planned to put some distance between himself and the prince, so he got out of the car without saying a word. While the prince was talking to his men, she disappeared in a flash. When we got to the house George mentioned, the guard was already knocking on the door. Although she was still wearing a formal dress, it did not hinder her from displaying her skills at all. She climbed directly over the wall, entered the house, and began to search for Cinderella in the darkness. She immediately locked onto the wife, who was running to open the door to show that there were two girls at home. After the lady got the glass slipper from the guard, she went to her daughter's room to wake them up. A voice that sounded both shouting and laughing came from the room, and Taoran recognized that it was not Cinderella. Then she heard the lady scolding, "Stupid pig, cut off a piece of your heel to fit into the glass slipper. Ha! Isn't this something from a fairy tale? How else can we say we are destined? It seems that I have found the right place at once." Taoran climbed over the wall, pretended to be passing by, and directly joined the guards who were looking for him. She followed the prince out to find someone, and she had met Cinderella. When the guards saw her coming, they naturally had no choice but to retreat and let her go to the front. She came as a princess, so naturally no one could turn her away and ask her to wait outside, so the family had to invite her into the house, and they had to show splendid and overjoyed. The story after that is a matter of course. Taoran was smart as ice and snow and saw through the deception of the countess, who cut off her daughter's heel, and rescued a disgraced girl in the woodshed. She picked up the girl and used her beautiful pure white handkerchief to wipe away the dust on the girl's face bit by bit, revealing the girl's delicate and familiar face. Found it? Of course, Taoran did not forget to put the glass slipper in his hand onto Cinderella's feet. Not too big, not too small, just right. Perfect. A familiar ringing sound rang in my ears. Her mission accomplished. It turned out that the stepmother and two stepsisters were angry about Cinderella secretly attending the dance, so they beat her up and locked her up when they came back. Cinderella was almost fainting. But what she saw when she opened her eyes in a semi-conscious state was the legendary fairy-like Taoran. So perfect, so kind, so considerate, so unique, so coming with light to save her from fire and water when she was in the most difficult time. At this moment, in her eyes, she was the goddess. Especially when Taoran wiped her face, helped her put on her shoes, and held her in his arms, Cinderella was moved to tears. When she thought again, she wanted to steal the goddess's boyfriend, but the goddess sister came to rescue her regardless of the previous suspicion. She felt even more uncomfortable. She couldn't hold back for a moment and burst into tears. Taoran could only smile. Because there were two more dings in her ears. I don't know what it is, but it must be a good thing. This made Taoran, who was about to put her back and go home, hug the heroine for a few more seconds. Ouch, how could she not see the gratitude of the heroine? But the one who is truly ashamed is Taoran. Wiping the heroine's face was to prove that she was Cinderella, putting shoes on her was to complete the task, picking her up was purely because the woodshed was too small, and the heroine couldn't stand up even half of her body, so she wore a skirt. Taoran couldn't squat down anymore. Well, why explain a beautiful misunderstanding? Having done everything, Taoran simply continued to build her favor and said a lot of words of encouragement and comfort. It wasn't until the prince arrived after hearing the news that she couldn't wait to leave the woodshed. "I'll leave Cinderella to you. If I find someone, I'll be relieved," Taoran smiled. "You are a match made in heaven, don't worry, no one can break you apart. I will go to the queen and ask for your blessing." Taoran strode away. She is relaxed now. This mission is completed. Quickly open the next level. She is really tired of these things. But before she left the earl's house, she heard ringing in her ears again. Leaving the carriage to the hero and heroine, Taoran rode back directly with his friends. On the way, she couldn't wait to turn on the display screen. The first one is, of course, congratulations to them for completing the 18 levels of tasks, and they will be rewarded with 500 points. The second one is that she received the hidden reward Cinderella's tears. She said that Cinderella was grateful to her and put all her feelings and blessings into tears. From now on, her luck will be increased by another 5%. Looking at this item, Chaoran couldn't help but have wild thoughts. If he continues to add all these things, will his luck value be topped up? Article 3, congratulations to the player for obtaining more than 50% of Cinderella's favorability. Players can open the hidden plot. After seeing the sentence, Chaoran guessed it. Sure enough, he asked her to increase her favorability points again, so that Cinderella's favorability points could be fully increased. What is said is that the indestructible friendship will give her double help, bala bala. Chaoran didn't care what the double boost was, so he just pressed reject. Do you think you are free? After Cinderella's favor is fully satisfied, is she still willing to break her best friend's heart and marry a prince? What to do then? One prince has already made him big-headed, and there is another one. When the time comes, love and friendship will be combined with destiny. The male protagonist wants to marry both of them, but the female protagonist refuses to marry them. The sadomasochistic triangle will kill you. To be honest, Chaoran couldn't wait to leave this drama. Sure enough, when she saw the fourth message, her head hurt again. The system prompts that the prince's favorability has reached 90%. Is this true? This prince is too unstable, no way. If this continues, will it really collapse? Chaoran didn't know that when he saw her holding Cinderella, the prince's eyes were more focused on her. What a shocking scene that was. There are such good girls in the world. For her own sake, Ran endured humiliation, showed great love and selflessness, saved her love rival, and even treated her love rival with gentle care. The aloof princess Ran was afraid that Cinderella's head would be uncomfortable, so she knelt down and picked her up with her thin body. I wonder if there is any princess in the world who can do this? That glance suddenly became the most beautiful picture in the prince's mind. However, as beautiful as a goddess. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 871. Back in the palace, it was almost dawn. When Chaoran returned to his room, he found that the staircase marking where he lived had been changed to the 19th floor. She had just freshened up, and before she lay down, there was a knock on the door. It's a prince. Chaoran naturally did not let him enter the room, and spoke first in the coldest and firmest tone. I know you came to thank me, and I appreciate it. I bless you and Cinderella, because I really have to leave. I don't want to stay here. Besides, I find that I have no feelings for you at all, so you don't have to feel sorry. Even without Cinderella, I would not have fallen in love with you or agreed to our marriage. So there is no need to apologize. The prince's expression was complicated. Chaoran couldn't see his mental activities, so naturally she didn't know that after this indifferent expression, the fact was that the prince's affection for her increased by 2%. Who is the prince who has already decided, Ran loves him? Otherwise, what was the purpose of everything Ran did for him and Cinderella? The prince now felt that Ran's coldness and determination were all just an act, all to fulfill him and make him happy. So even though he was slammed out of the door by Chaoran, he still replied inexplicably. Last time I said you were the most beautiful, the most sensible, the most considerate, the smartest, the strongest, the bravest, and the most perfect. Actually, I was wrong. I had to add 3 more. You are still the most noble and unique I have ever seen. The most selfless person. Chaoran was fortunate that every 10 floors in the tower attack game were rest floors, so this was the last level of the series. As long as she endures it longer. She opened the door and smiled. What the prince said made me so excited. Could it be that His Highness has fallen in love with me? The prince was stunned, and while blurting out yes, he shook his head. Taoran was speechless. Is this the NPC brain saying no, but his consciousness admits it? This silly boy. She started talking nonsense seriously. Your Highness, remember I told you that love must be restrained. Most of the time, preferences will be amplified by passion, impulse, freshness, and curiosity, resulting in illusions. Only emotions that have been restrained are real. Just like online shopping, it is easy to buy too many things on impulse and buy the wrong things and end up having no use. It's better to restrain yourself and put it in the shopping cart first. If after watching it for 10.5 days, after cooling down and the enthusiasm fades, you still like it and still want it, then it must be true love. The prince nodded stupidly and promised that he would restrain himself. Tao Rangong saw him off. Restrain it, this thing of emotion will disappear if you restrain it. Even if she can't overcome it, as long as she endures it any longer, she will leave. After dawn, before Tao Ran could go to the queen to persuade her to marry the two, she heard the news that the king and queen had woken up early and knew that the prince had brought Cinderella back to the palace last night. She was extremely furious and had given the order. Cinderella was locked up. And because Tao Ran helped the prince search for someone last night, he was also the main helper in finding the girl, and now he is being summoned by the queen. On the way to the hall, Tao Ran met his teammates who were coming from various places and had also been summoned. 8 people gathered together, waiting to be received. Ma Xiaoyuan was very puzzled. In the fairy tale I read, it was clearly stated that the prince would live a happy life after finding Cinderella. How could the king and queen be so angry? Tao Ran didn't comment, but Zhou Chang knew a lot. In fact, the earliest fairy tales were all dark. The well-known Cinderella story only took the first half. In the real story, the marriage of the prince and the girl is not the end of the story. Cinderella's status is not enough. Although her mother's family is barely aristocratic, it is of no use to the royal family. She is not well educated, she only has beauty. In the opinion of the king and queen, such a girl is not worthy of being the mother of the country. So even after getting married, Cinderella has been fighting with her parents-in-law. In the original story, after the novelty wore off, the prince eventually got tired of Cinderella, who had no merit. Cinderella died miserably. This is the class gap and family status difference that the original fairy tale wanted to express. Tao Ran felt relieved upon hearing this. She doesn't care where the prince and Cinderella end up, as long as the tragedy doesn't change because of her arrival. You know, when she heard that the queen was going to deal with Cinderella, she was shocked. She was afraid that the queen would be angry because she wanted the prince to marry her. Xiaoan suddenly said, "That's right. Let me tell you, I hated this fairy tale when I was a child. What is love at first sight? It's so fake." To put it bluntly, the prince didn't take interest in him. He fell in love at first sight. Yes, it's just the beauty dancing with him. To put it bluntly, it's just a package. It's a shell. And what about Cinderella? Did he deliberately enter the palace because he fell in love with a prince he had never met? Isn't she just trying to get out of trouble? For her vanity? Her purpose is not pure at all. Many people think that fairy tales are beautiful, but I wonder, how can such a self-deceiving combination lead to a happily ever after? Xiaoan's words reminded Tao Ran. Isn't it? She doesn't like this fairy tale either. The reasons are not just what Xiaoan said. Tao Ran, also, if a girl wants to get out of trouble and get ahead, why not use other ways? Why not through her own efforts? Why must she try to please the dignitaries? Why must she wait for the prince to rescue her? How can true love truly last long and stand the test of time? At this moment, Tao Ran suddenly realized that the story she experienced in this survival game, whether it was Rapunzel or Cinderella, had problems with the 3 views of facts. Even the starting level of Lifeng Pagoda, the story of Su Xian and White Snake, which she has not experienced, actually has many problems. Or is there some hidden purpose in this game? Could it be that the plots they experienced were unreasonable and needed to be corrected? If so, did she misunderstand the system? In a certain sense, isn't she a test for the prince? At least now the prince no longer just looks at people based on appearance. So, what is the right thing to do? Should she follow the plot, or guide the plot according to her heart? Soon, Taoran's 8 people were summoned, and then they were scolded by the king. The king stopped talking and said that Cinderella had seduced the prince and it would be a shame to die. Even her parents came to express their opinions, saying that their daughter was ignorant and deserved to be punished for making mistakes, and was left to the royal family's disposal. After the prince begged, the king waved his hand. The wizard took out a crystal ball. With a touch of his scepter, a picture flashed in the crystal ball. The high tower on the mountaintop in the frozen land was swaying in the wind and snow, and Cinderella was trapped in the tower, as if she was in a cage. "What is this place?" The prince saw Cinderella hiding in the corner and shivering, and he couldn't help but feel distressed. "That's the mountain." The king pointed to a mountain outside the window. The mountain tops, which were originally evergreen all year round, have been shrouded in dark clouds, and a vast expanse of white can be seen on the top of the mountain. Obviously, it was the wizard who did the magic. Cinderella is at the top of that mountain. The king looked at his son. "Since you say you love her, then go and save her yourself." Suddenly I felt something. A few days ago, I was having a conversation with my friends. As a result, the author was instilled with a lot of ideas such as lay down, salted fish, and leak consciousness. Several friends felt that the author output too many sharp things and was too critical and cynical. Thinking about it again, I still can't agree with it. Since I am the author, I have to output my opinions, stand from the perspective of the victims, and make my voice heard about injustice. And these should be the essential meanings of quick travel stories, right? Appropriate output shows the author's sincerity and value, doesn't it? I have been told by an elder since I was a child that the most important thing to determine the value of a movie, TV series, or novel is what you get after watching it. If it can inspire thinking, arouse resonance, and gain opinions, then this work is valuable. So when writing something, 11 yet often thinks about how to output values and how to combine them with articles. Therefore, many times, the article structure can be made simpler, but it still becomes complicated. Purely cool writing, false and empty, fantasy, whimsical, avoiding social conflicts and practical problems can actually be written much easier and more relaxed. But once you have a pursuit and want to output value, you will feel contradictory and even more tired after writing about it. Therefore, this article is indeed written completely according to the author's intention. If you find it too troublesome, too wordy, too complicated, not enjoyable enough, frustrating to watch, or not exciting enough, I can only say sorry. In fact, I had a lot of fun writing this book, and I'm glad to have found many new readers. Thank you everyone for your love. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 872. The king looked at his son. "Since you say you love her, go and save her yourself. As long as you can save her with your own hands, my father will agree to your marriage. But remember, you must save her within 3 days. Otherwise, she will not freeze to death. They will also starve to death. You can think of this as your father's test for you, or as your father helping you to understand your heart. If it is true love, I believe you will be able to overcome all odds and get what you want. Of course, if you wake up halfway and no longer insist on marrying her and are unwilling to take risks to rescue her, then your father will immediately stop this test. If you are willing to accept it, then set off immediately. If you don't want to, I will deal with her according to the law." The prince expressed his willingness to accept the test. He looked out the window. It was just a mountain, he would definitely be able to do it. The king looked at Chaoran and the other 8 people again. You helped the prince find Cinderella yesterday. Since you are so loyal, you should escort the prince on his adventure this time. This can be regarded as the king's punishment for you. If you fail to complete the task, you will all go to jail. Are you willing? There is no way the 8 people have the capital to refuse, so of course they should. As he finished speaking, the familiar ringing sound sounded again in the ears of Chaoran and the other 8 people. Undoubtedly, the test of these 19 levels is to save people. The prince felt responsible now. He stood up and begged the king and queen, however, she is weak and didn't rest last night, so don't let her go. She did it all for me, and it's all my fault. Seeing that the queen also wanted to plead for her, Chaoran quickly stepped forward. How else would she do the mission? Ran is willing to go to the rescue. It was Ran who found Cinderella last night. I did it. If I dare to do it, I dare to take responsibility. If I am wrong, I will admit the punishment. I am willing to accompany him. Princess Dongfang has endured hardship and can still take care of the prince, so that let me go. When the king heard this, he even pointed at his son. You see, Ran is so sensible. If you are as clear-minded as her and can take charge of your own affairs, I won't worry even if I abdicate immediately. The queen also closed her mouth to plead for mercy. My son's attitude towards Ran is very ambiguous. Since they are in love, let them endure hardship together, maybe the son will wake up. A friend in need is a friend indeed, and the result might be surprisingly good. Therefore, the queen did not change the king's decision, but just arranged 2 thickened dresses and a fox fur cloak for Ran. The 8 people each found an opportunity to turn on the display screen. Mission content: this level will continue the team from the previous level. Please help the prince to climb the snow mountain and rescue Cinderella. Players, please note that if you fail this level, you will be eliminated directly. I hope players can treat it with caution, and I wish you a happy game. The queen stopped Chaoran because she had something to say. But Chaoran saluted and said first, I know everything Her Royal Highness the Queen is going to say. But when have you ever disappointed Your Highness? Your Highness, please rest assured. When Chaoran said this, he already made up his mind. Since she dared to kill the prince in Rapunzel's fairy tale at the starting level, why is she restrained now? The system has always only said that you will be eliminated if you fail to complete the task, so why should she worry about the collapse of the story? Just like she thought at the beginning of this game, fairy tales are for children. If there are distortions, why doesn't she correct them? The prince and Cinderella are the protagonists. The protagonist is in a misunderstanding. Why can't she lead them out? With this in mind, Chaoran arrived at the foot of the mountain with the prince and 8 other people half an hour later. The moment you take steps up the mountain, the clock starts. It was also at this moment that everyone realized that the mountain was difficult to climb in 3 days. Not only was there a biting cold wind blowing in my face, but looking at the top of the mountain from the foot of the mountain, it almost towered into the clouds, and the entire mountain seemed to have been raised several times. After only walking for more than an hour, the 9 people started to add clothes. 2 more hours later, the 9 people had all their clothes on. During this period, Chaoran asked her teammates that no one should help the prince. Don't help him, don't pull him, don't serve him, don't prepare anything for him including food. Your Highness is in a high position and has everything at your fingertips. Because you haven't worked hard, you don't know how precious the things you get through hardships are. Your Highness will definitely be able to rescue Cinderella with your own abilities. Come on. Chaoran's words and deeds were also praised by the king and queen who were watching through the crystal ball. This girl really won their hearts. Little did they know that besides helping the prince change, Chaoran also had his own thoughts. She understands the parents' desire for their children to succeed, and she also understands the king's extraordinary expectations for his children. The king has high hopes for his son, and he must be grateful that she is now helping him teach him. Another more important reason is that Taoran has learned how powerful the king's wizard is at creating illusions. She didn't want to go through the dangers of the 17th level again. So let the prince be self-reliant and fend for himself. If he is miserable alone, the wizard will definitely not dare to play big, and the king will not be willing to hurt his own son. Then the difficulty of this level will definitely drop sharply. It will be much easier for them to pass the level. A few more hours passed, and the 9 people finally climbed 1/3 of the height. At this time, the temperature began to plummet. Even the tiger and the others started to chatter with their teeth due to the cold, let alone the prince. Ma Xiaoyuan was particularly anxious. Because of the cold, the small snake in the shape of a bracelet on his wrist has lost contact. He communicated several times with no response at all. Snakes are afraid of the cold and may be hibernating. Taoran gave Ma Xiaoyuan the hand-warming charcoal stove the queen gave him. As soon as his hand was heated, after just a few minutes, he saw the snake's body twisting in his hand. The snake looked up at Taoran and seemed to thank her. Taoran gave Xiaoan a set of windproof and waterproof clothing that he had previously received from the system, and they continued to move forward. Soon, there was flying snow. After climbing another few hundred meters, the flying snow turned into a blizzard. The prince fell and fell, feeling more embarrassed than ever before and reflecting on his life all the way. Especially after seeing someone with the same noble status as him, but able to bear so much more burdens than him, he felt that he was too far behind and that his life was somewhat in vain. The snow never stops. The 9 people had to stop and found a cave to light a fire and spend the night, but none of them dared to sleep. Their body temperature will drop after falling asleep, and they are afraid of freezing to death. After staying up all night, it was dawn and the snow stopped. They continued on their way. And the test will naturally not be that simple. Soon, they were exhausted and encountered a pack of wolves, an avalanche, and the danger of stepping into a snow pit. Taoran and his gang have already been working together well after going through previous tests. Everyone trusted and relied on each other, and finally resolved many crises. On the contrary, the prince became an outsider all the way. He knows nothing, and when danger comes, he becomes the one who is protected in the middle. So in addition to being embarrassed, he also had a sense of frustration and incompetence that he had never experienced before in his life. This kind of powerlessness made him more depressed and sad than the thrills themselves. Especially when he was resting on the second night, he saw that everyone had minor injuries of varying degrees. Among them, the bruises on Yingying and the scratches on Ran Ran's face were all done to save him, and he reflected deeply. Then, he said something unexpectedly. "I give up. Thanks to you Linling, a helpless cat with a broken cell phone, book Friend's Tale number 46293, etc. for the baby's reward. I love you, okay. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss." Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 873. Prince, I regret it. In order to cool down the prince's enthusiasm, Taoran deliberately sat apart from him, so when the prince rushed out and shouted at the dark sky outside the cave, she was unable to hold him back. "I give up. I am willing to give up Cinderella. I was wrong. I shouldn't let so many people take risks for my immature wishes. I want to be responsible for Cinderella, but I should be more responsible for escorting me, trusting me, and helping my partners in realizing my dream are responsible. I was too willful, too foolhardy, too arbitrary, too self-respecting. I was wrong." The prince looked enlightened. Taoran and the others did not expect that his awakening would come so suddenly. Seeing that the sky began to light up and the illusion was about to fade away, Taoran and the others were startled. Their mission was to escort the prince to the top to rescue Cinderella, but now they gave up halfway. Wouldn't they have failed in their mission? Wait a minute, Taoran shouted hurriedly to the sky, it's not over yet. The prince can do better. The dark sky temporarily froze, and Taoran quickly squatted next to the prince. Your Highness just gave up, she pretended to be angry. We have suffered for 2 whole days with His Highness, and with victory in sight, we gave up when His Highness said so. Are we worthy of our hard work? Are we worthy of the hardships His Highness endured? Are we worthy of Cinderella, who is still waiting at the top of the mountain? It was your decision to bring her back, and the king and queen were furious. Are you responsible? Are you going to let her suffer this unreasonable disaster because of your decision? His Highness must have made a promise to Cinderella, right? Even if you give up on her, should you tell her face to face? Otherwise, you've broken your promise twice. Taoran was also unhappy with the fact that the man in front of him was irresponsible. She was also the one whose promise was broken by the prince. The formation of a scumbag basically starts with breaking a promise. Furthermore, you are the crown prince of the Pomegranate Kingdom. Even if Cinderella is not your fiancée, she is still one of your subjects. Saving your own people is what you, as a monarch, should do, right? You tell her the truth face to face. You are a gentleman. Admiration flashed in the prince's eyes again. At this moment, his affection for Ran Ran was still rising. At this moment, he felt that Ran Ran was comparable to his life mentor. He had changed more in the past few days than he had learned in the previous 10 years. Doing ideological work is Taoran's strength. At this time, she lowered her voice, Your Highness, you have forgotten that His Majesty is testing you. Wouldn't it be disappointing for you to give up halfway? But if you persist until the end, even if you have given up, then you will be respected. When the time comes, His Majesty will be pleased with your progress and transformation, and when he is happy, big things will turn into small things. Then you can intercede for us, protect us, and save Cinderella, right? This is Taoran's complete intention. As the enlightened prince nodded, Taoran knew that this level could be completed beautifully, everyone would be happy, and he could maximize the NPC's favor and the points given above. The prince also said that he did not want to disappoint Ran Ran, nor could he disappoint his father, queen, mother, and all the people. He will definitely climb to the top and he will definitely be responsible for his actions. The prince grew up overnight and took the initiative to join the watch that night. After dawn, the prince looked completely different from before. He actively joined the team. Even though he was not very strong, he still did his part to help in the wind and snow. Even though he was in trouble himself, he never forgot to lend a helping hand to Xiaoan and Xiaoyuan who were weaker than him. Even though he was so frightened that his face turned pale when attacked by a white bear, he had no intention of hiding and drew his sword together with his teammates. They were already climbing the final stretch of cliff. Taoran and Yingying cooperated and went to the top of the mountain with great effort, and then lowered a ladder. The prince did not hesitate and was the first to start climbing. The nearly 90-degree slope made his legs weak and his hands trembling, but he did not complain, flinch, or hesitate, and he gritted his teeth without making a sound. I persisted despite my sprained ankle. The queen, who had been staring at the crystal ball, pulled the king and burst into tears at the transformation of her son. The persistent and determined light in his son's eyes is called a sense of responsibility, which they have never seen before. This test, even if it stopped here, would be an unprecedented surprise for them. Your Majesty, whatever Ran Ran wants from now on, I promise and will give it to you. Even if she doesn't become the future queen, she will still be a great benefactor to our Pomegranate Kingdom. Yes. At noon on the third day, the prince and his party of 9 finally climbed to the top of the mountain. No near misses. The prince only suffered a few contusions and sprains, nothing serious. The queen looked at her son with blood on his face and felt extremely distressed. But the prince was completely unimpressed. They have arrived at the foot of the tower. When Cinderella saw them at the top of the three-story tower, she cried with joy while holding onto the railing, and began to call for help. There is a faint black air coming out of the tower, and it seems to be enchanted at first glance. Looking at the countdown, there are still more than 10 hours until the end. Obviously, the test in the tower won't be easy. Taoran and the other 8 looked at each other, but actually they didn't want to go up. "Your Highness the Prince, Your Highness the Princess, please help me." Cinderella emerged from the iron window at the top of the tower and begged for help with red eyes. "I'll come right away." The prince was fearless and was about to break into the tower, but Taoran held him back. "I think we can let Cinderella jump down, why not?" The fact that she could poke her head out showed that the tower had no restrictions on her body. Cinderella is so thin, if her head can come out, her body can also come out naturally. Isn't that simple? Rather than risk them, why didn't she come down herself? "Cinderella, do you believe me?" Cinderella nodded anxiously. "Believe it, I believe it more than the prince. Look, we were all injured when we came to rescue you, and now our whole bodies hurt. But there are monsters in this tower, and we might be in great danger if we go in. So, why don't the 9 of us work together to catch you down there? How about you jump down?" "Ah! Don't you believe me? Let's connect all the cloaks to make a big bag, which can definitely catch you." "No, no, I can't." "Why not? This girl Xiaoyan and I can go through all kinds of difficulties and dangers, and a brother like Xiaoyuan can muster the courage. You are so strong and good, you must be no worse than us." Taoran took 2 steps closer. "Isn't Cinderella in the story the epitome of many girls? If you want to change your destiny but also want shortcuts, if you don't want to pay but you want to get everything, how can there be so many good things in the world? Even if there is, there will definitely be a heavy price to pay. Isn't it better to take the initiative to work hard and show strength than to rely on others? Have the courage to take a step forward, and the road ahead may suddenly become clearer. The prince has done so much for you, shouldn't you take a step for him? Even if it's for your own future? Don't you want to prove to the prince that the girl's family also has courage? If you don't even have this courage, how will you be a queen in the future?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 874. Taoran captured Cinderella's thoughts and desires very accurately. After looking at Taoran for a few times, the prince followed her words and said, "My leg is sprained. Cinderella, do you have the courage to take this step for me?" Cinderella couldn't say no, so she could only nod. 3 minutes later, the bag connected with the cloak was ready. Taoran and others promised that they would definitely catch her. They have a mission, and they care more about Cinderella's safety. After another minute, Cinderella finally summoned up the courage, closed her eyes and jumped down. She was caught firmly, unscathed. "The moment I jumped down, I wasn't afraid anymore. This step didn't seem so difficult." She smiled and hugged Taoran. "The mission is over." The prince looked at Taoran, there was something in his eyes, and he seemed hesitant to speak. Taoran knew that his favorability must have increased again, or it was probably going to be full. "Your Highness, restrain yourself, it's impossible between us." "Can I ask why? Is it because I'm not good enough?" Before Taoran could think of what to say, the yellow hair appeared again. "Because Princess Ran Ran has too many choices. She is so perfect and everyone loves her. Your Highness, you see, the 5 of us also love her. If you want to marry her, then first fight with the 5 of us. Fair competition, only those who win will win." Huang Mao was talking nonsense, but the other 4 people, including Tiger, actually cooperated with him. They nodded and put their hands on their weapons, as if they were going to duel. The prince was depressed, and the enthusiasm in his eyes began to fade away. Duel. He knows himself, but he has no ability. Who can he beat? He was a little frustrated, so, you will be with the final winner of the duel. Why do I have to be with someone? Taoran said from the bottom of his heart, the world is a big place and the road is long. There are still many things I want to do and have to do. So I didn't lie to you before. I have to go far away. I will never come back again. Taoran knew that the prince was sober now and knew how to take responsibility. So he must not be stubborn. Sure enough, the prince finally suppressed his words, well. I will not propose to you again, because I am not worthy of you. But I want to learn from you and become a person like you. Even if you never come back, I will always remember you. Good. Naturally, Taoran couldn't see that the prince's favorability value for her, after faintly surpassing 99%, finally fell steadily and was fixed at 98% because she felt not worthy and because Taoran could not be impressed. They returned to the palace. The test is over. The prince became mature and sincerely apologized first to his parents and then to Cinderella. I don't know anything, so I'm not in a hurry to get married. I want to enrich myself first. These words were so comforting to the king's ears. He went up and hugged his son. Taoran and the others resigned. Everyone's system sounds are here. The mission on the 19th floor has ended. The rest has nothing to do with them. They went back to pack their bags and check the system information. The series of tasks are all over, and this time the points awarded are quite a lot, a full 1,000 points. At this time, Taoran's total points had exceeded 13,000. Obviously, she was also recognized on both levels and gained a lot of extra points. As soon as she finished cleaning up, Taoran was summoned and the queen wanted to see her. In the meeting hall, Taoran was told that the king had forgiven everyone's sins. The prince will not marry Cinderella for the time being. He will not get married until he is strong enough to stand alone and be responsible for the country. As for Cinderella, he will try to get along with her, but will not make any promises to her for the time being. If she can't wait, she can leave and get married at any time. Of course, in order to compensate her, the royal family will take good care of her. If she wants to return to her former home, the king can order her parents to educate her and give her a prosperous life. And just because she almost became a princess, her stepmother would definitely not dare to make things difficult for her, and it would not be difficult for her to marry into a good family. If she wanted to be self-reliant, the king offered to give her a place to live, a small fiefdom large enough to support herself. She can live whatever life she wants, and she can also study. I want to be like Princess Ran Ran. Cinderella chose the second option. The king and queen were very satisfied with her choice and said they would arrange a teacher for her. So Ran Ran. The queen hugged Taoran tightly and kissed her forehead. My child, I am really, really grateful to you. I have to thank you for everything you have brought. I am also very sorry that you can't be my daughter-in-law. So Ran Ran, tell me what you want, and I will definitely help you realize it. The wizard also spoke. The prince also entrusted me to try my best to help you fulfill your wish. Where's the prince? Taoran wanted to encourage him as he was about to say goodbye. He said he had to restrain himself. He didn't want to separate. So he didn't see you. Yeah, when Taoran released his mental energy, he had already sensed the people inside, restrained. It's okay if you don't fall in love. I'm leaving. So I hope the queen can help me go higher. Taoran was worried. Does the queen understand what she means? The queen looked at the wizard. Is that okay? It's natural, of course. Taoran glanced at the wizards. So wizards and witches are actually equivalent to the system of each level, right? Help guide NPCs, help resolve conflicts, help create difficulties. As long as the demands of NPCs and players are judged by the system to be logical, they can be passed. The wizard said again, "You can make another wish." Taoran looked at the wizard and suddenly thought of the witch in the starting level, and then thought of the Black Knight. "There are Black Knights chasing me. If they come, can you help me stop them? If possible, help me see where they are." The wizard nodded. Taoran also nodded secretly. Sure enough, her guess was right. Wizards are the maintenance system of the game. He picked up the scepter, and a light curtain flashed across, isolating other NPCs. The crystal ball flashed, and a picture appeared on the ball. It can be seen that a group of Black Knights are going up a staircase, but they can't go up. Taoran took a look and saw that it was the mother of dragons with the dragon treasure who was still breathing fire at the stairs from time to time. Every time the stairs just grew, the mother of dragons would appear and strike, causing the Black Knight to be blocked on the 11th floor of the stairs. Superior. It's 9 levels short, safe, thanks to Dragon Mother and Dragon Treasure. Taoran was determined. The level master of each level has his own mission. The wizard seemed to see through what she was thinking and said bluntly, "When there are no players on that level, the level master can help you. But once a player arrives to start the challenge, the level master will do his best. It's beyond your reach. So you have to be mentally prepared. Stay vigilant at all times." "Yes, Uncle Wizard, so I hope you can help me block them after they come to the 16th floor." "I'll try." The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 876. Taoran looked at the isolated king, queen, and the figure projected on the ground behind the door in the inner room. She couldn't help but ask the wizard. Can I ask a question?" "You say." "After other players come to the 16th floor, will the story here start from scratch, or restart?" She was quite worried. After her efforts, the course of the story and the NPCs have changed and improved. Once restarted, the stories she brought will disappear, and these NPCs will also be wiped out in a certain sense. They will return to their initial settings again. If so, she thought, she would be sad. The wizard smiled. "Don't worry, once the plot unfolds and changes, a different world will open. You can understand it as parallel time and space. These NPCs will not disappear, they will continue to live in a different state. As for other players, if the game is done step by step, then what they participate in is just a game, and the NPCs they face will be just a bunch of data. So I have to say, congratulations, you did a great job." Taoran nodded. She breathed a sigh of relief. She can leave. The wizard motioned for her to go out of the hall door, where she could go. Taoran thanked her, hugged the king and queen again, and strode away. When she turned around, she saw the king and queen who were still waving to her, and the prince who was standing behind the door and looking at her silently, always restrained. She was suddenly moved. Since when did these NPCs become vivid in her eyes? Did she bring about a parallel time and space? Ah! Is this really just a game? Then this game is really open. What kind of great abilities do the people who create and operate games have? Anyway, she couldn't imagine it in her mind. Her mind was in a mess, and she heard several dings in her ears. System message has arrived. When he walked out of the door of the main hall, sure enough, the scene in front of him completely changed. In front of her was another long staircase. What was different from before was that there were still 7 people standing by the stairs. Her little friend is waiting for her. The sadness just now was instantly diluted. "Tiger, women are trouble. They are grinding and chirping. Huang Mao, are you going to say goodbye to the prince? Did the prince cry and beg you not to leave? Eagle, if you don't come out, we will suspect that you want to stay here and be the princess. We are going to use the loudspeaker to send you blessings, so that you can live a good life and strive to have children and grandchildren. George, don't listen to them. They just said they were going to wait for you for another hour. Xiaoyan and Xiaoyuan came up from the left and right. Let's go, sister. Zhou Chang, which floor can you go to? Has your compensation been paid? Can we go to the 31st floor together? At the 17th level, all of them received rewards that allowed them to go straight to the 7th level, while Zhou Chang received 2 levels of compensation. So he can go to the 29th floor, and the 31st floor is the resting floor, so his next challenge will be the 31st floor. Tao Ran, I haven't looked at the system yet. Let's look at it when we get to the resting floor soon. Anyway, everyone can at least walk together on the 8th floor. It's different when you have someone with you. The stairs to the 20th floor seemed particularly short, taking less than 2 minutes to get there. Just like the previous 10 floors, as soon as they arrived on this floor, everyone felt a strong sense of repulsion on the stairs, preventing them from going up. They must rest on this level before they can move on. We all know that this is a level that contains confusion and shakes our xinxing, so a few of them agreed not to go to bed or eat here, and to get out as soon as possible. If anyone notices that the ban has disappeared, they should shout with a loudspeaker. After swiping the number plate, the 8 people disappeared and each entered their own space. But what does it mean that plans don't change quickly? Who would have thought that things have changed? The rest on this floor is no longer a room, and there is no bed or food. What Tao Ran entered was a sea of flowers. It is so beautiful and fragrant that it is like a paradise in paradise. The sunshine is gentle and the breeze is gentle, which is the most comfortable feeling for normal people. It's hard not to be intoxicated with each step you take. In such beautiful scenery, people will relax. After taking a deep breath subconsciously, Tao Ran began to feel his body loosen up, and only a voice in his head shouted, "Lie down, sleep, and rest." And the sound became louder and louder, reminding her repeatedly to take a rest. She said that she was so tired from the previous floors, and she barely slept since the 17th floor. Especially in the recent 3 days in the snowy mountains, I only squinted for less than an hour every day. My body and spirit were exhausted. I really needed a rest. Only when she is well rested can she better face future challenges. Tao Ran's mind started to feel heavy. But she was well prepared, and her strong mental power firmly controlled her tired brain, preventing all kinds of negative signals from being transmitted to her body. She closed her eyes, sat down, and started meditating directly. Empty the whole person, block out the 5 senses, breathe inwards, and strengthen mental strength. Gradually, the lethargy begins to subside and the mind becomes clear. Tao Ran naturally wanted to leave subconsciously, but when he opened his eyes, he found that he couldn't get out. She knew that the time she came in was probably too short. She began to meditate again, continuing to keep her mind firmly awake. After a while, she tried again, but still couldn't get out. By the 3rd time, she had been in this space for about 30 minutes. After pressing her name tag, the scene changed and she returned to the 20th floor platform. So far, she is the only one who has come out. The restriction on the stairs going up has also disappeared. You can continue going up. Tao Ran used the loudspeaker to send a message to let others wake up. After sending 3 messages in a row, she sat down on the platform and opened her screen. I haven't seen the loot from the previous level yet. Open one by one. Congratulations to the player. The queen has fulfilled the player's request and ordered the wizard to send him with all his strength. The wizard has fully activated his witchcraft and finally sent the player directly to the 5th floor. Congratulations to the player, you have received the compensation reward of the 17th level. The player has waited 3 more days, so he can get the reward of going straight to the 3rd floor. In this way, After she went straight to the 27th floor, she could then go up to the 5th and 3rd floors, for a total of 8 floors. But the 36th floor is the resting floor, so with this breath, she will go directly to the 36th floor and start the challenge from the 37th floor. If we look at it as a whole, she has already walked through 1/3 of the entire tower. Congratulations to the player, you have received a gift package full of Queen's favor. Finally, both items owed by the system were paid off. Taoran clicked it and took a look. In addition to a bunch of big and small speakers, point rewards, and a 20% ability bonus that can be allocated by yourself. Ability includes intelligence, speed, agility, strength, reaction, luck, choose one from 6. Taoran did not hesitate to increase this bonus to strength. After adding strength twice, the effect is still obvious. After taking out the dagger from her folding bag and performing a knife trick, she could feel that her force value was at least half of what it was in the real world.